Hey everyone, first of all, I'm sorry I haven't been posting. There's been some problems. I had to move house and I lost my job, but hey, all's well that ends well. Anyway, a few months back I was gushing over a little game called Fight Night Round 4, and if you recall I strongly recommended it. Well, a couple of days ago its latest version was released, Fight Night Champion. So today we're going to have a look at the latest addition to this franchise and we're going to see how it fares. The first thing I noticed was that Fight Night Champion didn't have a manual. At first I thought I'd been shortchanged at the shop, but it turns out that wasn't the case, and the manual is on the disc. I thought Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was being cheap, just giving us a goddamn control list, but no. In the case, with my Fight Night Champion Edition disc, I got three things: a code to let me access EA's servers, another ploy to screw over second-hand buyers, a warranty card, and most insultingly of all, an advert for a golf game. So EA wouldn't budget for a manual Fight Night Champion, but they did feel a need to force their golf title down my throat. The gradual degradation of the quality of video game manuals really pisses me off, especially this new trend of not actually including a manual at all. But that's a rant for another time. Okay, first off the bat, the new edition, Champion Mode. The Fight Night series has never had a story beyond what players choose to assign to their characters, i.e. nothing. So having a named character to play as is quite an interesting idea. This does run into a few problems though. First of all, the story is totally generic and completely unapologetic for that fact. For example, let's take a look at our antagonists.
Well, neither one of them can punch like me, I can guarantee you that. But between the two of them, well, I'd say little Andre hits harder.
Still, there's no problem with the story beyond the rushed pace and two-dimensional characters. I suppose not screwing up is the benefit to not taking any risks. If you really want a plot summary, you play as Andre Bishop, an up-and-coming middleweight whose career is cut short by an immoral, corrupt boxing promoter when he is sent to prison. He gets out, gets back in the ring, and you can work out the rest of it by yourself, because I really stopped caring after the first cutscene. Gameplay-wise, the only real difference between Champion Mode and Legacy Mode is that in Champion Mode you have absolutely no options in customizing Andre whatsoever, and each fight you take part in will usually have some sort of stupid term or caveat. These range from utterly infuriating to having no meaning whatsoever. For example, in the fight playing at the moment, Andre's right eye has been cut, so I can't let my opponent get in more than 15 hits on my eye in total, regenerating 5 hits between rounds. God, it's just so arbitrary. It feels as if the designers just suddenly realised that all they'd done was essentially create a Mortal Kombat style tournament fighter, with cutscenes, and they threw these in to try and make it a little bit different. That's admirable enough, but sadly most of the time they just come across as irritating rather than actually challenging. Moving on to the rest of the game though, quite a few other things have changed, and it's sad to say a lot of it not for the better. The game is now far faster and far more fluid, which is a good thing, but the controls have taken a serious step back. A serious step back. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Total Punch control system, allow me to explain. You use the right stick to throw punches. Flicking the right stick to the right, for example, throws a right hook to the body. Hooking it to the right and then back around to the top throws a right hook to the head. All pretty simple. The problem is, in Fight Night Champion Edition, you now have a total of 5 punches per fist, meaning a total of 10 punches assigned to that one analog stick. The end result is, unless you move the stick into the exact correct 10th of the circumference of the mount, you throw completely the wrong punch. To illustrate just how bad this is, take a look at this clip of me fighting as Muhammad Ali against Joe Frazier. The only way I found to actually effectively score any damage on Smoking Joe was to throw hooks at his head. Whilst playing as Ali, who any boxing fans will know is well known for his jabbing outside style. The reason was simple: it hurt me less to wade in through a barrage of hooks and uppercuts from Smoking Joe and land my own on his head than it did for me to try and throw jabs at a distance, completely miss and go in with a hook instead, whereupon Smoking Joe would gleefully jump in whilst my guard was down and gladly punch my intestines up through my mouth. The Abix buttons are now dedicated to throwing punches, which scares and confuses me. almost as if the developers were aware that the new system sucked arse and they needed something to try and sort it out. In turn, of course, this means that taunts, illegal blows and the like, and stance switching as well, are now all assigned to the D-pad. So you'll never use them unless you're desperate, because that means taking your thumb off the move button. You now have to press both shoulder bumpers in order to clinch, which means actually trying to execute a clinch is considerably harder. You actually have to let go of the block button and the lean modifiers in order to be able to hit the clinch button, which means that you effectively have a split moment, and a split moment is a long time in Fight Night Champion Edition, where you are standing there completely defenseless. I don't like it. Oh, and the icing on the cake. We've gone back to needing to use the left trigger to aim shots for the body. I can't even begin to tell you how annoying this is, as it is also the button for the lean modifier. And it requires you to unlearn a huge amount of what you picked up in Fight Night Round 4. To Champion's credit, it does mean you can execute fast-paced combos that flip between head and body shots far more easily, keeping in touch with the fast pace they were going for. Personally though, I find it clunky, especially as it means it's now impossible to land a body blow whilst moving. Oh, there are no more haymakers either, but to be honest, I always found them a little bit stupid, a little bit over the top. Guard is different. Holding the right trigger now puts you into block, and so long as you're not leaning, it seems that you can block pretty much anything. Leaning makes it next to worthless, but up to that point you're pretty much safe. You can throw punches while still holding the guard button, and quickly cover up again after firing off the blow. All gained simply by holding the right trigger and flicking the right stick. Naturally, if there's virtually no drawback to constantly blocking, it begs the question, why bother assigning it to a button at all? You don't even need to move your block into the correct position anymore, you just hold down the button. Just hold the button and don't punch your lean. You don't even need to let go of the button to punch, you can punch from a block. So why not just have blocking as the default status? Okay, I think it might slow your stamina regen a little bit, but the fact that I'm not certain shows just how little of an impact it actually has, assuming it has an impact at all. You know what, I'm actually tempted to play around with the right trigger sellotape down, just to see what happens. Graphics and sound-wise though, Champion is definitely a step up from Fight Night Round 4. The graphics are very visceral, and blood gets all over the place, just as it is wont to do, rather than sticking around wounds as it so frequently does in video games. You can see some there on Andre's shorts. Damage mapping is also more sensitive, and you can accurately use it to gauge where you should be landing more hits on your opponents in order to maximise the pain. The music swings back and forth in the Champion mode, triumphant when you're winning, sombre and apprehensive when you're getting your ass handed to you on a silver plate, as you'd expect. The AI is... I honestly don't know. Different boxers behave differently, of course, but I've never seen much variation within them. People say that the boxers who are taking too many hits to the head will tend to cover up more often, for example, but I've never really seen that. A cautious counterpuncher, for example, will always be cautious. If you've got the advantage, of course that makes sense, but if he's got the advantage, he's going to want to press it home. Or if you've seriously got the advantage, then clearly his style isn't working. I'd expect real-life people to mix up their tactics a little bit more. Not necessarily throw their old standard way of doing things completely out the window, but as it stands, it just doesn't make sense. Oh, and on the subject of mixing things up, most, if not all, of Teddy Atlas and Joe Tessitore's dialogue and commentary are lifted directly from Fight Night Round 4. Now, it might not mean much to some people, but to me, this just smacks of sheer, utter laziness. Maybe they couldn't get them into the office or something, but I have my suspicions. Overall, though, Fight Night Champion isn't a bad game. It's just not the same caliber as Fight Night Round 4, though. Champion's faster-paced action is good and definitely moving in the correct direction for the series, but it's severely undermined by the control system, which has taken steps backwards. For my bitching, Champion mode is pretty harmless. It definitely doesn't add anything to the experience, but it doesn't take anything away either. Beyond the champion mode, the legacy mode has a few extra bells and whistles on it as you'd expect, but conceptually remains the same. So overall, Fight Night Round 4 is still the better game, but Fight Night Champion's not bad. If you're looking at getting involved in this series at this point though, I would recommend Fight Night Round 4 instead.
Nighty night, bitch.